Hey everybody! So today we're going to talk some more about the Galactic Center. Specifically about possible connections with Chiron in the Galactic Center. Okay, so a while back, Natalie and I had talked about possible, not overlap, that's not the right word, but similar themes between, or what feel like similar themes between Chiron and the Galactic Center. And this was a while back. And then this past week, my own Chiron, my own natal Chiron was very, very triggered by some what feels like fuck transits. Which got me thinking more about it, about Chiron in general and about Chiron with the Galactic Center, because I found that through this triggering, it's interesting, through this triggering, through this just fucking what feels like was a very difficult previous week. The Galactic Center is the one thing that I couldn't get out of my mind, despite everything else going on. So that, and I know that that's a personal anecdote, but I do feel like there is a connection. I know that she has mentioned to me before that she feels like there is a connection. But before I go on, I want to throw out the disclaimer that I am literally just fucking with astrology here. I am in no way, shape, or form saying that I am an expert on the Galactic Center. I have a lot of astrological knowledge, but this is one area where I am really just fucking with theories, with ideas, not claiming to be correct or right. And I reserve the right to find this wrong later on. You gotta test things out, see if they fit, see if they keep fitting, and if not, be able to, revise them. So anyway, in saying that, I've started writing a blog post. By the time I post this video, I'll probably have the blog post finished, and I'll link it. If you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be linked where you can click on it. If you're watching it on Instagram, I'll have it in the bottom under the video, where you can copy and paste it, because Instagram is fucking weird like that. So I'm going to be looking at what I have written to make sure that I don't totally fuck this up. Okay, so let's talk for a second. Let's talk for a second about where this connection kind of feels like it comes from. Okay, so Chiron is both wounding and healing, right? The GC kind of feels like it might be similar. Or the transmutation, transformation, all of those kind of things. The GC does, if something were to fall into the GC in space, really fall into it, or get sucked into it. That's not the right word, but you know what I mean. It would change. Not be destroyed, but changed. It would be changed. Charged. There is something there is something about the GC that is very outer planet-like, right? Very, very Uranian. Okay, very, very, very Uranian. Very Plutonian. Also Neptune. I gotta be honest, Neptune is the one that I feel the least. Neptune is just very, very, very sensitive in a way that I don't think of the GC as being sensitive in the same way that Neptune is, but the sensitivity is still there. With the GC, it's just a different kind of sensitivity. But I suppose the sensitivity part is where the Neptunian energy would come into play. Either way, it's very, very, very outer planet. It does feel like the GC does correlate to the outer planets. There is a correlation. Now, Chiron orbits between Saturn and Uranus. So Chiron is kind of like the bridge between the between the inner and the outer planets. From what's known to what's unknown. Now, obviously, we know that Uranus and Neptune and Pluto exist, right? We know they do. But they're still more unknown to us. They are. They're more unknown than, the inner planets are. Or the 7 traditional planets. They're just more known. Those are more known to us. We feel the 7 traditional planets more than we feel the outer planets. We feel them more by, we just do it because they're more personal to us. That doesn't mean that we don't feel the outer planets. We do feel the outer planets, but in a different kind of way, I guess. So Chiron being that bridge, right, between what is known and what is unknown is kind of like the GC in a way, right? The GC, we know it exists, right? But we don't know what goes beyond it. It's unknown what's beyond it. What happens theoretically if you went through it, where do you go? Where do you end up? So there is like an unknown, the GC in and of itself is kind of a bridge in the same way that Chiron is a bridge. Plus with the GC being very Uranian and Plutonian and Neptunian in a way. I can see the Neptune thing too. Though I do think more Uranian and Plutonian, but the sensitivity part with Neptune. So there are ties just with that alone, right? Now, also, I've talked about the GC being like protective, and I do think that it can be. I think that it can be, don't get me wrong. I think the GC can be a lot of things. But I also think the GC can be difficult. Like when I think, okay, one of the questions on the form, on the questionnaire that we had people fill out was, what do you think of when you think of the GC? What comes to mind when you think of it? Or when you think of your planet conjunct the GC, what do you think of in your mind? What I think of when I think of Uranus and Neptune conjunct the GC in my chart, I think of somebody who is pushing walls away from them that are trying to close in on them. And at the same time that they're doing this, they have light entering or exiting from them. I can't really tell from the top of their head. I can't tell if the light is coming in or the light is leaving them. That doesn't feel particularly easy to to me when I have this visual, and I think in this visual it's me doing this. But I can't really tell because it's kind of dark. Everything except for the light is dark. But that doesn't feel like a particularly easy image. So I don't think that the GC is always easy. I think it can be difficult too. Even though I think that it can be, transformative and changing, and it can be protective, I do think that it can be difficult. But kind of like with Chiron, there is a beauty in the difficulty. Like with Chiron, there is a beauty in the wounding and in the healing kind of thing. I feel like there is a similarity there as well, or they feel similar. They're obviously not the same, but they feel similar. Now, the other thing I want to bring up is Chiron's mythology. I've already done a video kind of about this, but there are some, there are people that feel like Chiron should actually rule a sign. I disagree with that. I don't think Chiron needs to be ruling a sign, personally. But Chiron does, because it would be, honestly, it'd be hard to pinpoint exactly what sign. I feel like Chiron resonates with mutable energy. It resonates with Virgo, with Gemini, with Pisces, and with Sagittarius in different ways. And in different states of Chiron. Like Chiron's mythology in life, he was a healer, he did medicine, he was a hunter, I have all these things written down. He was a teacher. Yeah, all of those kinds of things. So he did a lot. So to me, in his life, in the mythology of his life, actually living, well, that seems very it seems that all of that seems very mutable sign. I could apply all of those to the different mutable signs. He was also a lot of other things too, but those were the big ones. Now, when he dies, right? He is hit with one of Hercules' poison arrows on accident. He's hitting the. I've seen it said he's hitting the thigh or hitting the leg. The thigh is obviously the leg, but I do think it's interesting that some people say the thigh. Some mythology says the thigh because the thigh has a correlation to Sagittarius. The thighs are one of the body parts that Sagittarius actually has domain over. Okay. Now, his half brother, his father was Kronos or Saturn. His half brother was Zeus. That's Jupiter, which is also another Sagittarian connection. And I'll mention in a second why I'm making these Sagittarian connections. He was in pain, supposedly after getting shot with the poison arrow. He was in pain for 9 days. I think that's an interesting number to pick because Sagittarius is the 9th sign of the zodiac. Let me see. There were some other ones. And when he died, when Hercules brokered a deal with Zeus to get rid of Chiron's immortality so that he could die, he traded places with Prometheus, essentially, or traded places, some kind of like that, and was able to die. And Zeus put him in the constellation, and I've seen the mythology place him in two different constellations. He's either placed in Sagittarius or Centaurus. Well, if he's placed in Sagittarius, I mean, there's another Sagittarian connection. But even being placed in Centaurus, right? Sagittarius is the centaur. So there's a connection there too. Why do I bring up all these Sagittarian connections? I'm not trying to say that Chiron should rule Sagittarius or anything like that. But it's kind of another tie-in, or what feels like another tie-in with Chiron and the GC, because the GC, when it was, I guess, discovered, would have been in Sagittarius. Well, let me take that back, because the Mayans knew about it before anybody, but when it was actually discovered by people, by the radio wave Sagittarius A, when it was actually discovered, the GC was in Sagittarius. Put it like that. Scientifically discovered, that radio wave. So there are a lot of themes with Chiron that do go back to Sagittarius. The GC is in Sagittarius. And they just feel connected. Now, this is my Jupiter retrograde doing its thing that it does, where I'm making connections to things, but I have to break it down backwards, right? Like I have to. I have an idea about something. I feel like I'm on the right track, but I got to break that shit down, from backwards motion. So I actually know there's logic and reason behind this, and it's not just an intuitive idea that never goes anywhere or doesn't make any sense. But I do think that there are connections between the two. And I feel like this is the case regardless if Chiron makes a contact with the GC or not. I do think it's probably a stronger connection if Chiron, say, conjuncts the GC or opposes it or trines it or what have you. I think it probably is a stronger connection. But I think Chiron and the GC, there's something about them that might go together regardless if they aspect each other in the chart or not. Now, another interesting thing about the GC, and I'll pull it up here on my... Another interesting thing about the GC and Chiron. When Chiron was discovered on November 1st of 1977, at the time it was discovered at 10 a.m. At the time it was discovered, where was the fucking rising? 26 degrees, 3 minutes, Sagittarius. conjunct the fucking galactic center. Now, I know that there are people that might be like, that's reaching. That is one fucking hell of a coincidence. Like, really, that is one hell of a coincidence. And I'll show you that real quick. Okay. This is, I'm doing my blog post right now. This is the chart that was for the discovery of Chiron. As you can see, it's right there. Oh, and what do you know? I didn't even notice this before. What the fuck do you know? Jupiter fucking retrograde. I think that's really interesting too. I didn't even notice that before as I was doing that. That's real. That makes me think it's even less of a coincidence. As you all know, I've gone on and on about Jupiter retrograde with the GC. Anyway, just some thoughts. Still thinking about this. Yeah, but that, I think there's something to it. I really do. I think there is. I know Natalie, it's been a while since we've talked about Chiron with the GC, but I know she thinks there's something with them too. So we'd love to hear any thoughts that you have. You have Chiron conjunct the GC, opposing it, doing something with the GC. We'd love to hear about it. Or just talk about Chiron in general, you know, or the GC in general. You know, we'd love to hear from y'all. So I'm going to get going. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Fuck With Astrology. I'm at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Paternal Astrology on Instagram. If you want to subscribe to us on YouTube, you can search for Let's Fuck With Astrology in the YouTube search bar. If you do the Reddit thing, you can come to the subreddit Let's Fuck With Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. Okay, y'all. I'll see y'all later.